There's something about what happens to us does not make us as much as reveal us.
Oh, I know. What I was trying to say was that I thought that that I often write this way, and it's also what I think about life, which is that once you are an adult, events don't make you who you are. They just reveal who you are.
Could you elaborate?
Sure. If you have two people, who are both, whatever, 30-year-old women, and they both get hit by a bus, and they are both paralyzed from the waist down. One of those women may turn out to be one of those terrific people who enters handicapped Olympics and coaches young women who are in wheelchairs and goes back to law school and becomes a terrific advocate for the disabled. And the other one is going to take to her bed and feel sorry for herself and become addicted to painkillers, and that's how she'll spend the rest of her life.
Which one are you?
Well, I don't know exactly which one. I'm pretty sure I'm not the latter, but my point is it is not the bus accident that made them who they are.
Yeah.
That's all.
How do you like your name?
I like my name okay. I'm sure it'd be nice to have a more fabulous, fancy name with more ups and downs in it. But I was never crazy about Amy because it was sort of like a nickname. But over time, I've come to like it just fine. And Bloom is okay. After all this point, I go, well, what's my name? I certainly thought, well, if I really disliked it, I could change it. But I couldn't see myself becoming Catherine Von whatever it is. I thought, well, here I am, Amy Bloom, sort of how I think of it. Sometimes, pardon me?
It sounds to me like a star's name. It feels to me it's like it was your destiny to be a star once you.
Oh well, I'm delighted to hear that. I'm sorry, of course, I hadn't thought of it that way when I was 10, but I'm happy to hear that.
What do you love and hate about being interviewed?
Oh well, let's see. Most of the bad things about being interviewed are located entirely within myself, since nobody ever puts a gun to your head and says you must be interviewed. I am sort of subject sometimes to sort of what I think of as attacks of diffidence. For example, one time I had an interview with somebody, and the person, her style was to make sort of these leading statements, which I understood later. I'm sorry, I didn't understand them sooner. Were designed to elicit responses from me. But I am actually a pretty good listener. And so she would sort of make her leading statement, and I would say things like, oh, I suppose you could look at it that way. Or, oh, well, that's an interesting point. And then I could hear her becoming more exasperated until finally, 2 minutes before the end of the interview, I understood that all of those things had not been designed for me to be politely interested, but for me to say, oh, on the contrary, blah, 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 which I failed to say. So I think sometimes I feel comfortable entering into semi-personal chats with people I don't know, and other times I get this sort of wet bathing suit feeling and find it a little more difficult. It's not anybody else's fault.
But flattering is not one of the things you feel.
Oh, flattered by being interviewed?
Yeah.
Well, good point. I mean, I should feel flattered. But I don't think that's. Sometimes I feel disbelieving, but I don't. I guess it doesn't occur to me. At this point, I think, oh well, it's always sort of amazing that somebody would like to have these conversations with me. But there you go. It's more like that.
Most people love to talk about themselves, but not necessarily you.
I don't think that that's the thing I find easiest. It's true. I don't mind having like a chat. I'm usually a pretty good conversationalist, but mostly I just feel like it would be boring for people to have to hear a lot of blah, blah, blah from one person about, oh, I think this and I felt this, and, why I don't write a memoir.
If my interviewer had been your leading interviewer, I would have felt, F her, she failed. She's a lousy interviewer. But hostility is not one of your immediate reactions to a bad interviewer.
Well, no, because I really, I've interviewed people in my life, and also, as a therapist, I spent a fair amount of time sitting in conversations with people who found it difficult or found it easy, and who wished to say something or didn't wish to say something. And so, some people are better at these things than others, and I'm always mindful of the fact that it is in its in its foundation, it is somebody paying you a compliment by saying they think this would be an interesting or productive or useful conversation to have, and if it's not so successful in the event, first of all, it's not the worst thing in the world, and second of all, it probably wasn't intentional.
Do you read biographies of great writers, and if so, does it speak to you in any particular way?
Oh, well, I love the Noakes biography of Jane Austen, and that one of Oscar Wilde, I think by Ellman. Very randomly, very occasionally. And yeah, they speak to me in that I have gone out of my way to look for the biography because the writer speaks to me. Or Noel Coward's correspondence, which I liked very much. When I read Jane Austen's letters to her sister Cassandra, and think about the kinds of reviews she had to endure. There's something very moving to me about it, that a writer like that should sort of be dismissed as, a country lady writing a mild amusement, It's still distressing to me somehow, or you read about Oscar Wilde's terrible errors in judgment again and again and again, and sort of breaks my heart that somebody should be so willfully self-destructive and so self-deceiving on one hand, and so wonderfully clever on another. So yeah, those books are, I enjoy them.
I am often struck when I read those books that it seems that most of these writers write out of their failures in real life to communicate with other people, and therefore they take up the pen. But this sense does not seem to fit with you. It doesn't seem that, I was so frustrated with my failures in real life, that's why I picked up the pen. That just does not seem to ring true for you.
Well, I suppose for anybody's life, there will be a certain level that you get to where you could say, oh, well, but isn't it true that it would have been better if such and such had worked out? And you go, yes, that's true. Would have been better. Would have been easier at the time. So it's not that I feel that, my life has been sort of a seamless, floral print of successes, just going from one little flower to another. But I think it was more of a wish to tell a story and also to enter other lives. And in that sense, I think it certainly came out of something. The first stories I wrote, I married fairly young, and I started raising kids quite young. And, perhaps there was some wish to go, oh, what is it like to live other lives?
Yeah. Yeah. What are the principal rewards